Yeah, I mean, the people look at things very differently just depending on who they are. And so yeah, I haven't had many people be like, oh yeah, that's you. I mean, I tried to title the one that's, as me, and there is, as Angie and me is the title. There's this cortege photograph of, it's called Elizabeth and Me, and it's this self-portrait, this historical photographer doing this self-portrait where just his hand is reaching around her shoulder, and it's this kind of strange, weird portrait and kind of inclusion of this artist. And there's this kind of long history of self-portraiture within the history of photography. It's almost like the selfie was invented really early on.
As a fake phone company, we're always trying to innovate and come up with new, the latest fake innovations. And one problem we've noticed is a lot of people are really addicted to their selfie, taking selfies. They're constantly taking pictures of their food, taking a selfie at the park. Like a lot of people will go on vacations and spend the entire vacation taking selfies instead of actually enjoying their vacation. So
I don't know, because I've actually been approached by several different app development companies who wanted to partner and use the work to promote their product as an app that is going to help people use their phones less. And I just don't know if that's the right way to go about it. I think it has to happen in a way where people have expectations of others and they do it kind of in the real world. Because the more that you're pinging this device, if your device is giving you rewards for using it less, you're still seeking a reward from that same thing.
It'll be really interesting to see in the future. I mean, I think people will continue being addicted. As technology evolves, people will continue to be addicted to all sorts of different things. Like who knows what people will be addicted to in a year from now, 10 years from now. I think the important thing is just to realize that you have a problem, or that your friend has a problem, or think about it. Try to use your phone less. If you need a solution, the No Phone is here. For $10 you can get this innovative, revolutionary device, and you can hold it and you can enjoy your life.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really busy since all of this has happened so quickly. I haven't had a lot of time to start making new work. But I have done a couple tests, and I'm thinking about doing some more kind of studio style portraits where I'm looking really at the body with kind of just a solid background where it's just a physical study of the body, like thinking about the posturing and the neck that goes and drops down. Kind of what does that isolation look like in the body language of a user of technology. So it's kind of hard too, because the direction that the work has taken, it's almost established me as this person who's going to talk about screen culture, and I have interests beyond that. A lot of this work started about my ideas about photography and the way that changes the way we interact with the world. And now we use this device to not only make photographs, but we spend a lot of time using it to look at other people's images, and we do it very quickly. So yeah, I mean, I've got just a couple ideas of things that I want to start shooting, but I've got a lot of public speaking things that are coming up. So I'm talking in Oregon next week, and then I'm going to Paris for about 3.5 weeks, May through June. And so those talks are really taking up a lot of time to prepare for. So
I think that it's very important to understand the long-term effects of technology on our work lives and our mind and our habits. For instance, the fragmentation of attention is related to time, of course, and I see that the current culture of multitasking is really often destroying what I call the integrity of the moment. So when we have a moment, that is actually a platform for building thought, for building frameworks of thinking. We need that time, that uninterrupted time to digest.
So this one's titled Angie and Me, and important kind of self-portrait and almost kind of the birthplace of the project, because this is the side of the bed that I had fallen asleep on where the device had hit the floor, and I saw my empty hands. And kind of got the idea to really start investigating the series. But really, again, like I said before, having myself in the photograph allows me to be a part of the series and be a part of the conversation. And I'm not this person who's above everybody else or saying that I'm better, but it's something that as an artist I'm experiencing in my own personal life. I think the whole virtual reality thing is going to be really interesting to pay attention to. There's a lot of momentum behind that now, and different markets trying to pick it up. I mean, Zuckerberg just, I think last year they dropped a couple of $1 billion to purchase, one of those, I don't think it was with Google Glass, but one of those development companies. And, there's this idea that you could go shopping and check out a showroom of products by sitting on your couch. And that's going to be a whole different shift where people are like just not even leaving home at all. You can just live in this virtual world right in front of your eyeballs. Yeah, I think about like what are the experiences that we do miss out on when we are kind of sucked into these things. We're getting to the point where we're kind of doing this gesture more than we're not doing it, and I think it's just about the individual figuring out what's meaningful time to them and what kind of expectations do they have from the people that are in their lives.
Measures of creativity have slipped into countless different ways: imagination, sense of humor, novelty, etc. But the type of creativity that's fallen most is something called elaboration, and that is the ability to, as I'm mentioning, build on an idea, flesh out an idea. High school and middle school teachers, on average say that technology is making especially students more impatient, more prone to shortcuts. I mean, this is related to our ability to elaborate on an idea. And once you need to do that, you need to, once you have an idea, you need to move forward with it. So I think the integrity of the moment is related to how we experience time, and verticality is, in a sense, how we are relating to the space of our mind. And those two experiences of time and space are very important to protect, so that we can be creative, so that we can do more than react and do more than just run with the first answer in our minds.
In a soon-to-be evacuated space in the Lower East Side, i.e. dying institution. Fuck your phone, keep your head up is a little campaign I do to remind myself to be on my phone less and partake in the world more. Appreciate who's around me, when they're around me, as they're around me. Smartphones make you dumber. Who couldn't benefit from using their phone less? In fucking instant gratification nation society, there's just like the next thing. Was it like a 6-second attention span? It's like a second less than a rat. That's crazy. I've been through different generations. I've experienced the late 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and I've watched all this happen. And in the process, I've done some soul searching. I've studied Buddhism at times, and practice present time awareness with my dude Noah Levine, Dharma Punks, and that's about staying in the moment, in the right now, where your feet at. Take a deep breath, stay in the moment. Eckhart Tolle, it's the power of now. Don't live in the past, don't live in the future. The past usually brings up resentment, and the future usually brings up fear. Like, stay where my feet are planted. I got a shot at being happy without outside influences. You're not even a fast food generation. You're an instant gratification nation. It's not a bad thing, it's just what it is. We're fucking influenced by outside sources, advertising. They push these fucking phones on you like everything's instant. I've always been annoyed with social media aspect, like advertising. It's always gotten under my skin. Since I was a kid, I never listened to commercials. I shut the commercials off. It's fucking force feeding. In transit, they get to tell you what you want, what they want. As long as you pay a fee, you get to put what you want on the walls and force feed it to you visually.
badly these buildings are being affected by the radiation that it's giving off. So we're going to take a path through the woods up here. The effects of living near a cell phone tower could, result from like headaches or increase in temperature. And we don't know the health effects of what living near one of these towers is right now because we don't have enough research.
I actually brought a visual model to demonstrate what Professor Gandhi, who did studies along these lines, has actually shown, and his studies have been confirmed by French Telecom.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a little more time to see these models?
We're going to go to another.
This would just take just a couple
Sure,
of seconds.
of course. Yeah, we're going to go to another level. Okay, the cell phone is here, and what you're saying is that, and this actually, so we're trying to keep this closest model. The cell phone.
So this exposure from a computer, does that emit radio waves, and is that a threat as well?
So, as you sit watching TV, not only are there visible light waves from the TV striking your eyes, but also radio waves transmitting from a nearby station, and microwaves carrying cell phone calls and text messages, and waves from your neighbor's Wi-Fi, and GPS units in the cars driving by. There is a chaos of waves from all across the spectrum passing through your room right now.
And I'm just appalled that studies have not been initiated. And I think I know why. Because industry now, and people have made millions off of these.
But we don't have research that proves it doesn't cause cancer. I guess different areas give off different waves because, it all depends on how many people are using the tower around the area. So we're getting readings around 2,000. Right now, standing here would be compared to standing next to a microwave. So, over the years, that eventually catches up with you, I would think. Some people are getting cooked right under this.
I think the phone is definitely something that's going to be in our lives forever, and it's definitely something that's made our lives more efficient. But it does get to a point where you're just using it all the time, and not doing the things you normally would do, like talk to a person, look somebody in the eye when you talk to them. Or even just go outside. Like there's probably a lot of people that just seamless food to their house and just stay inside more because they don't have to go outside. They can just go on Instagram, see what their friends are doing, and not communicate. And it sort of like creates like a turtle person, which is really weird.
Two weeks after I got married in 2014, I left home and I went into an artist residency, actually in upstate New York, and I was like pretty homesick, which usually doesn't happen to me, but I think it happened because I had just gotten married and wanted to be back home with family. And I would go to this coffee shop in the mornings to start my day, and it was like really towards the end of the trip. I was like really ready to be home, and I saw this family, and it was a mother and a father and two daughters, and they're all at this like little cafe. And everybody was on their device except for the mom. And there's just this silent table, and the mom just like stared and like zoned out the window and looked so like isolated from her family, even though they were in the same place. And I was like, how dare they like waste that precious time they have together? So I like wrote about it. I usually don't journal, but I just like kind of wrote about that experience that morning. And then when I left that cafe, I just was kind of obsessed with just observing people who are on their devices. You don't have to, move your head more than 2 degrees to see someone else doing it. And so I was like, yeah, when I get home, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like I'm gonna like set up times when I use my device and whatnot. And I didn't even think about making a project about it. It was just something I wanted to change in my habits. And I got home, and then like 2 weeks later, I just was right back to where I was. I was using my device in bed, you know, before I went to sleep, and you know, at the dinner table. And I fell asleep one night while I was using my device, and I woke up to the sound of my phone slapping against the floor, and my hand was still in the shape as if it was holding my device. And I had this like moment where I was just like, that would be really interesting to see what it would look like to photograph people without the devices in their hands. So I was just thinking about the way that it changes like the way that our body interacts with other people. And I feel like people could, you know, within a couple millimeters be able to predict the width of their own device because they hold on to it more than anything else. So yeah, I started doing some test shooting and had a couple people model for me, and worked through all these different ways of, you know, if I was going to use film or digital, and eventually kind of came up with the formula that ended up making the photographs that have this aesthetic. And I just started making it out of the interest of it. It was something that, like, when I would approach people and tell them about the project, they really would respond positively. They would be like, oh, this is actually really interesting what you're doing. And it was really cool for me because before I even, you know, made a lot of the photographs, I already noticed that the people that were in my images were telling me about how they were starting to change their behavior. They had experienced this different way of looking at themselves and what it was that they were doing. And so it's been an interesting kind of curve, because I then was really cognizant of my device use, and I was like trying to kind of not do it as much. And then the work went viral back in October, and all of a sudden I'm like completely tethered to my device because I've got phone calls coming in at 2 in the morning from photo editors, you know, around the world who want me to send them pictures, and I'm like, as an artist, trying to get the work out there and have this exciting moment.
Things to think about as we move forward are our value systems related to technology. I think that if we're going to have a healthy use of technology, a measured use of technology, if we're going to restore these gadgets and devices to be tools and not to be controlling us, we need very much to understand what see them skeptically, see them you know, as something separate from us. And I think that's very much to do with the value systems. For instance, you know, the person whose head down is with the BlackBerry, the smartphone, running down the road, you know, in the office building, the CEO hardly listens to people around him. That's a sign of someone who's successful in our culture, and we need to question that. You know, the idea that the smart kid has their hand up in the classroom. Teachers, on average, call on students and give students 1 second on average to answer a question. I mean, these are value systems related to speed, instantaneity, and of course technology. And one of the most important, I think, ideas for us to keep in mind is that by valuing in ourselves what machines do best. You know, machines are quick, they're instant, they are decisive. If we value in ourselves what machines do, we're only valuing one side of ourselves. Because in the human being, there is a dual process of thinking. There's fast, which is actually primitive, has, you know, the fast brain has the IQ of a chimpanzee. It's our intuitive mind. It's based on what came before, what's rewarding. You know, the snappy answer is usually something that's well learned and well versed, but is coming from the primitive brain. The slow mind, which is everything that the machine can't do, is reflective, more highly evolved, more difficult for the human being. And you know, this is a side of ourselves that I think we're tearing down, or at least undermining, when we are so balanced toward machinery and toward fragmented attention.